All right. One of the first things that we do in any open house is introduce the crew here at Lean Value Sires that is helping us out today. And I'll talk about my family there a little bit too. So first off, I got my herd manager and head herdsman Ryan Rice. Helping us show today is Bonavista Farms, Ryan Michael. The twins. These guys help me out at the farm all the time. They may help me manage my sows and everything as far as that goes. Cody and then Lane Griffin. Tyler Sparks is a good family friend of ours. He raises some show pigs here in Hardin County. He's going to help out today. His son, Trenton, is also here to help us today too as well. Then I got the two Searson boys, Josh and Kyle. They're going to help out today. Our guest commentator today is going to be Jake Rupert with Mormon's ADM. And then finally, but not last, he's always on the end every year. I don't know why he's on the end. Matt Gross is going to help out too as well with the boarders, getting them up here and go from there. I'm going to send these guys back and we'll get ready here very shortly. The next thing, I like to thank my family. I like to thank the guys here out back. I like to thank all you guys for coming. My dad, Bill's probably over there still serving drinks. He's the one that got me into this kind of thing. My mom, Dina, she's over at the Bounce House helping out. My father-in-law, Jerry, he's back here helping out. My wife, Alyssa, and my mother-in-law, Tammy, is in the office today. They're out back here helping out too as well. Feel free to introduce yourselves to them. My brother Brandon's here. He's floating around helping out here too as well. Somewhere out back. He's got two little kids here, Annabelle and William. And then my pride and joy, Cavern. He's probably still in the Bounce House. He's out back here. So, again, thank you guys for coming. We're going to get geared up. A little new this year. We're actually going to display each boar as we bring them in on the banner here, whatever you want to call it here, the presentation slideshow kind of deal. I'll talk about each boar. This is a little bit different. We've never done this before. We're actually going to commentate together on each of the boars. Jake's been through the herd. Jake's basically his whole entire feed program through the Mormon's ADM is everything that we feed here. Boars and sows and show pigs. So Mormon's has a big influence on what we do and how we feed. I bounce ideas off of Jake. Jake bounces off ideas off of me. And he came through and looked at the boars. And he'll actually tell which boars he's probably going to use because he's actually picked out quite a few that he really likes out of the program. So with that being said, we'll get started here real quick. I'm going to give the guys the thumbs up. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try to get the presentation up here real quick, get the website up, and then go from there. A little hot. There we go. You can talk over too if you want.
Yep, testing. We're good.
All right, good deal. The first boar that we got coming in through the ring, this is All Caps. All Caps is a foundation for my foundation female herd here. All Caps is a big affair, full Monty, Triple Crown's littermate sister. Tweet this as the sire of this boar. Really huge footed, really huge bone, big stride. This guy puts together a lot of my programs and what I'm doing here at the farm. This guy, littermate's sister, was shown down in Oklahoma. Did quite good there in Oklahoma. Lots of good attitude, really up-headed, really cool kind of dude.
And the other thing you might want to highlight on the all caps deal is Tweet This was maybe a little less of a notarized board when he first had that through here. And obviously he's not with us anymore, but what you're noticing is 225K you may have saw come through this summer. That's a Tweet This sow on the bottom side. I mean, there's some pedigree power sitting through here, and obviously you guys can see physically as he's matured, back shape, rib, body, presence, look, and design is all extremely good. So definitely a board that I think Rusty, obviously a little biased, but can sincerely tell you, use this guy with confidence.
All Caps' mommy, who's actually in the crate right now, just had a litter of Imperials. She actually had them last night, so I was fair until probably about 2 o'clock this morning. We got 3 littermate sisters in that deal. That was kind of a funny deal on that whole entire deal. All Caps' granddam was actually a slaughter sow. She was a slaughter gilt. She was taken to the stockyards, and the guy that owned the stockyards took him to our county fair, well, Logan County Fair, where I grew up at, and that gilt ended up being middleweight champion there at Logan County Fair. So I had to have her, so I ended up buying her, and then we put her into the program. So I'm really impressed with this, what this guy's going to have to come and what he's going to have in the future. Impeccable rear two legs, really cool up-headed kind of design, kind of boar, one I like quite a bit. So that was All Caps.
Page 18 of your catalog will be Lockdown, the next board that'll be coming up here shortly.
Lockdown was kind of an interesting purchase. We purchased Lockdown. Lockdown came from Russell Knies down out of Oklahoma area. We actually bought this guy in conjunction with Loveless Farms. Lockdown was a private purchase right off of the trailer there at Belton. You want to make one that's got a lot of bone, a lot of substance, a big rib cage, a big stout skull. This is the guy you want to use. This guy's got a lot of good to him in a lot of good ways. He's big bladed, big backed, big hip. If I were to change this guy a little bit, I'd like to change the way he comes off his front too. And I like to maybe widen him up just a tick, but I think this guy's got a lot of good in the Chester breed.
Any of you guys that raise Chester hogs probably identify with the fact that you can get some big-legged ones in a hurry, but trying to keep that hock clean can be a challenge. And so this guy, for all the bone and foot that he does have, that's a pretty clean-jointed one, guys. So if you still need some bone inserted into your sow base, I think this guy will probably fit.
Russell was pretty excited about this deal, when he approached me on this deal, going being hill-jacked back on Ions Dam. So he was pretty excited about that deal. There's actually a littermate boar that's at Chad Hill's that's done very well for Chad Hill and them. I really think these guys two mirror each other pretty good. I think this guy's got a lot of good for the Chester breed. So again, that was Lockdown, Hill Jack back on Ions Dam from Russell Knies and family. And we owned that with Loveless Farms. That's a pretty good Chester boar.
Next up on your in your catalog, if you want to look on that, is page 12, is Bad to the Bone. Berkshire boar from Whipples.
Was the food good? Let's hear it. Was the food good? That's good. Everybody having fun so far? All right, good deal. One of the biggest things about these open houses, there's always that dead silence between each boar as they come in. That's why I wanted to have a guest commentator with Jake here because, Jake, like I said, we bounce a lot of ideas off of each other as far as feed rations and everything as far as that goes. Plus, he also bounces a lot of ideas off my sow program and then my boar program too as well. Jake has a pretty good program, an show pig program through Plainview there in Indiana. They've done extremely well. They got a pretty good deep Hampshire set. Spot set's pretty decent too. So, that's one of the biggest things on that deal. We want you guys to utilize the resources that we can give you. Utilize Jake, utilize me. Any questions you can have about feed rations, Jake's the guy to see. Me too, a little bit. But, board questions, everything as far as that go, will help you out. We're also going to be doing some drawings here and there in between each one. As soon as the bucket gets full, we still got a few people still signing in. So once that bucket gets a little full, we'll have that bucket come up here, and then we'll start drawing some names out of there for some prizes that we're going to give away. So we got some pretty good stuff coming for you. Here comes Bad to the Bone. So Jeff Whipple and I, we spend a lot of time with each other. These Berkshire program is pretty interesting down at Whipple's. You go down there and you go from one barn to the next barn and you just get amazed by what he's got down there. And I went down to Duncan looking for Berkshire Boar. And, there was a few there that I really hit on. But this guy, in terms of bone substance and everything as far as that goes, he wasn't at Duncan. Jeff says, hey, I got a picture I got to show you. I want to show you this Berkshire Boar that I'm contemplating on sending down to Belton. And I looked at him, and the first thing that came to my mind was, man, he's tall fronted, man, he's stout skulled, and man, is he stout. Could you change him in a few ways? Yeah, I'd change him in a few ways. I'd adjust that rear two on him just a nickel. But I tell you what, this guy is impressive on top. He's impressive rib caged. He's deep bodied, and he's got a lot of bone and substance to him. I think that guy's got a lot of good for the Berkshire breed.
Especially relative to the Berkshire industry where we're at. And I mean, it seems like there's two different coins still out there. There's a few Berkshire programs that still have some skull, maybe a traditional look up front, maybe not quite as slick and trendy up through their shoulder and front end, but at the same time, some of them we've given up some back shape and some rib already. The amount of folks I've had ask me over the course of this fall is, you found any Berkshire Boars out there that still keeps some grow in them, still keeps some spread up high and some roll to their rib? And this guy does it on a lot of occasions from a program that, guys, isn't trendy. They've been around and they've fought the Berkshire game a long time. They were doing it before it was quote unquote cool. So definitely a program and a board to tie into.
Another thing I'm using the Berkshire program, and you guys can see I've loaded a lot of Berkshires into the program this year at Lean Value. I'm actually using the Berkshire Boars to breed into my cross females. I was looking for a purebred influence that I wanted to put in my program. I looked at some of the NSR breeds, which I'm going to use too as well. But I looked at the Berkshire program and said, I can get a lot of good out of that Berkshire program as far as if I select the right kind of boars and match them up with my right kind of sow base. Using a Berkshire Boar on a cross female is not a bad idea. A lot of the successful guys that are out there are doing that nowadays. So keep that in mind too as well. That was Bad to the Bone. I'm going to have you bring that bucket. Where's my brother at? Yep, bring that bucket up here to me if you could. We're going to start drawing here in a minute.
There's a little bit of travel for the boars to get back and forth from the barn, so there's going to be a little bit of dead time. And the next boar we'll have come up will be Who's That, and he's on page 6. Looks like Rusty might do a couple drawings right here just to keep things moving.
So the first thing that we're going to do is give away is a, just that there, Dad, that'll be fine. First thing we're going to do today is we're going to actually give away a full bottle of Matrix. At Matrix, I'm sure everybody knows what the price is on Matrix. So the first thing that we're going to give away is a full bottle of Matrix. And if I'm pronouncing the name correctly, Logan Harmon from Mansfield, Ohio. So Logan, just make sure you go to the office and let them know that you want a full bottle of Matrix, okay? Let's give him a nice round of applause, everybody. That's right. So, Who's That? I tell you why I gave this guy that name, Who's That? I've always had a passion about Ohio State Fair. I grew up there. I showed pigs there. I was a barn boy there. One of the biggest things that, in my influence in my lifetime, Ohio State Fair is it. That's where I want to set it. I want to set a mark in the state of Ohio. This guy, I tell you what, when I saw him there at Ohio State Fair, I said, This guy's going to be champion hands down. I'm going to buy him. And I don't really care what anybody else says. I'm going to buy Ohio boars at the Ohio State Fair. I encourage out-of-state breeders to breed boars for Ohio State Fair and bring them there too. It cost me $20,000 for this guy. This guy, in terms of front third, he's really, really wicked cool. I mean, if you can make him that tall fronted, that attractive, that extended, that good bone, this guy's going to be really, really good. I'm going to use him heavily in my program. I'd like to change him off his rear too, just a nickel. But I think that guy, in terms of bone, flex, shape, design, I think that guy's got an incredible amount of good to him. I really like Who's That. Another thing with Who's That too as well is, like I said, how I got his name there. I should reflect back on that. I sent pictures to a lot of different people on that guy as soon as we got done picturing that guy. And I actually sent Jake a picture, a couple other people, and the first thing that they said was, "Who's that?" Every text message that I sent, and I didn't say anything about the boar. I didn't say where he came from. I didn't say where he placed. I didn't say what pedigree it was. I just sent the picture, and the first thing that happened was the response that I got was, "Who's that?" I forgot to mention who was the guy that farrowed and Who's That and who he came from. Nick Barney and Tim Barney, 3N Livestock up there in Northwest Ohio. Great program that those guys are running out of there up in Northwestern Ohio. They're putting together some pretty cool things. If you get a chance, run up and see Nick Barney and them. They do really, really good work up there.
Next guy in is going to be page 24 in the mature boar section. Kind of your bottom left corner is Mancrush. Rusty, when he was talking about what boars he trotted out, and a lot of these mature boars don't take boar life as well. They can kind of wear down, and their feet can get a little sore, and it gets to have a hard read on them. And this guy's a little bit like that up front, but there's still a lot of good in this hog, and he needs to be utilized in different places, and that's why we went ahead and brought him up. Plus, you can't argue with the Morgan family, and the sow line that this guy comes out of is incredibly good. So, again, one that, we're going to slide some mature boars in that need to be used, need to be seen, and doesn't mean that there aren't some other ones that don't get shown, but this guy still has some good and some value for where we're at.
Mancrush has done extremely well in siring a whole bunch of good hogs out there. Dalton family from Springfield, Ohio, actually had a Mancrush boar sold to Apex. They called Juggernaut for $28,000. Mancrush will add a killer look to these kind of deals. He adds some power. He's definitely a barrow maker. If I were to protect him just a little bit, I'd protect him off his rear too. He's not going to add a whole lot of bone. He's going to keep bone there where it needs to be. So we got another fall here, but that's all right. So, but we'll definitely be one of those kind of boars that'll be interesting from that regard, as making barrows and making some boars.
Look at his tongue. Look, that's what yours do.
Next boar out is Air Jordan. That's just in the ring right now. He's on page 3. Basically, open the catalog. He's right there. Bred by Twister Genetics. He's a prophet back on an untouchable 159.2. I remember Rusty and those guys trotting these. A lot of guys trotted this boar out at Expo last year, and we're just looking at him. And if anybody knows in the Yorkshire program, it can get tough to find the right pieces. This guy is a pieces kind of boar, guys. He's definitely one that, as he's aged, maybe doesn't give you as cool of a look as he had younger, but this guy's so good in terms of pastern strength, elevation, and still feeding some shape and spread up high, especially when he was younger. And he's so good in utilizing his hip and rear leg. He's worked really good on power sows. Definitely created a good-looking set of show hogs. I know there was a couple hogs that had a nice run out in the IGSC circuit in Indiana in the spring and continued to do well. And I know Final Drive owns this boar with them. They've used them with confidence and utilized them in their Yorkshire herd. And, I mean, they're no strangers to making good Yorkshire hogs. So definitely a guy that maybe not a show pony today, but offers a heck of a lot of value, and we wanted to make sure that you guys saw him.
And Jake said it right off key. On the Expo deal, he was one that I saw leave the arena, and I said, man, fundamentals on that guy are so true. He's so square coming and going from you. He's going to fix the rear leg issues that we see in the Yorkshire breed. He's actually going to bring you up on pasterns. I use this guy quite heavily. Like he said, that, you know, we own this guy with Final Drive Genetics, and we're very tickled with the results that we had out of that deal. The Hendricks family had a 4th overall jackpot show in Gilt that did really well from them. And obviously, the creme de la creme, we end up being reserve overall out of a barrow out of him down at Summer Type Conference down in Louisville. That was also the champion Yorkshire Barrow down there in Louisville. This guy, phenotypically, I mean, he reads one that's going to just make you a little bit more up-headed, a little bit more cool design. He's a prophet, untouchable. That pedigree reads true as being very sire potential to make some banners hang. So, like I said, use that guy with confidence. He's pretty darn cool. Next up, we have the champion spot boar from the CPS deal, Summer Type Conference there in Springfield from Meggert Showstock. He's Keep Quiet. He's an Empire changer. This guy hit me pretty hard when he came to the ring there at Springfield. I thought this guy had a lot of good to him as far as the fundamentals off his rear front and rear two. Could you make him a nickel, more heavier bone? Yes. Does he got a lot of top shape? Yes. Does he got good hip shape? Yes. But where this guy is really cool, he's really cool. He's got a great set of wheels. He's got a big top hip shape. He's got a lot of top shape, and I think he's a great outcross to all the loudmouth lines that are out there. I will tell you that we've had some issues with semen on him, so you know there are guys that we're having to call and cancel orders on because of the factor that he's not making a whole lot or not making any. So this guy, he's one that I would use heavily in a spot program, one that I recommend for a lot of breeders, especially with the loudmouth line. That's Keep Quiet. While we're waiting on the old man good to go to get here, let's go ahead and draw for somebody else. Reach deep down in here inside this bucket. Ben Engelman, you just won yourself some Spirettes and a packet of lube. So, congratulations, Ben.
I'm sure for most of you guys, if you've been to any of the open houses the last couple of years, Good to Go's been here, and he's been noticed. And at Indy that year in 2015, when he was reserve champion, was an intriguing board that a lot of guys saw value in. Obviously, the top side of his pedigree, Madness, has been seen work quite a ways through different pedigrees. Stop the Madness had a really good run in Indiana and other pockets, and Madness is obviously the daddy of him. And the whole Cook program has done really well. Then when you take him back on Troublemaker's sister, then things start getting pretty crazy. So this guy has done a really good job of making some quality Hampshire babies that still sell well and feed well. If you are looking to kind of twist up your pedigree a little bit, you have too much point taken or too much point maker in it, It definitely, this guy offers a little variation to that, and definitely a boar that, is one of those good older boars that we just needed to trot out again and make sure he's being used.
What we're seeing on the good to go guys, we're seeing a lot of bone, we're seeing a lot of substance, we're seeing a little bit of power added to them. We've seen a lot of success. The reserve champion Hampshire Bora that Jada Johnson shows at Indiana State Fair was a good to go last year. And then the Smock family had quite a bit of success with some Hampshire gilts out of that deal. Ohio, we've seen some good success there. I think the champion bred known or reserve bred known there, not this year, but last year was a good to go. Then also too as well, I think Jada ended up driving the littermate bear to be junior champion Hampshire boar there at Indiana State Fair. This guy, like Jake was saying, you want to get a little bit different line and go dip back in some of that old school kind of stuff with the madness in there. I think you're going to find a lot of good in this guy. A lot of guys are using him in their crossbred programs too, so keep him in mind for the crossbred deals too. That's good to go.
Next board that'll be coming out, it'll be on page 22 of your program, is Private Stash, spot boar from Pearson Odell.
No, it's a spot.
Private Stash is one wicked devil. I'll tell you that much. Odie, who worked for us here at Lean Value Sires, he had a real hard time showing this guy down at Belton. But I tell you what, if he did get a good show out of this guy, I think this guy could have been pushing pretty hard against Mike Drop. That was the same time frame as Mike Drop was there. This guy's done a lot of good as far as programs are out there. He's going to stouten you up. He's going to elevate you at the point of his shoulders. He's going to add some extension to you, but he's also going to maintain some center body cavity too as well. He's going to maintain some center width to you. Neenan family, actually, the champion gilt down at Belton this year was a Private Stash. Private Stash's pedigree reads Ron Delaraw on a high life. He is stress negative. His dam is litter mate to bouncers. And actually, it goes back to a program that Jeff Whipple actually had a female from. Odie was pretty high on this. A lot of good guys have used this guy. Levi Canales has used this guy. A few other spot breeders out there in the country have used this guy. You could protect him off his rear too, just a nickel. But I think this guy's got a lot of good to him. Pretty good spot boar here. A few other things too as well. We got Roy White out here. Make sure you guys go see Roy White. He's got some show supplies out here. We got some other things for you guys here later on. We'll talk about some stuff when we got a surprise little drive here towards the end with a pretty cool hog coming at the very end too as well. Just keep that in mind.
Next boar that'll be coming in, he's just making his way in, is Big Island. He's on page 5 of your catalog. Yorkshire boar that's a news flash back on a brotherly love. He was the Ohio State Fair champion Yorkshire boar.
I seen this guy, and everybody will tell me, he showed at Summer Type Conference. I said, yep, he did show at Summer Type Conference. Fogel took him down there. He did well at Summer Type Conference. He didn't hit me as hard at Summer Type Conference as he did at Ohio State Fair. This guy improved immensely at Ohio State Fair. This guy's pastern set correction, the correction off of his rear too, and the way he strides is really, really cool. He's also one of those big, fluffy kind of deals that Fogel's notorious from. He's going to add some fluff. He's going to add a big top. He's actually got some pretty cool extension. He's got a pretty big forearm in him too. if I were to protect this guy a little bit, I'd open that center chest for him just a little bit, and I wouldn't take him to something that's real moderate in frame because you're probably going to end up sacrificing something there. Newsflash on a brotherly love. That's Big Island.
As we get the young gun in, we'll bring in probably, is he one of the older boars in stud, or?
I think Skull's probably a little bit older than
Just a
him.
little bit.
Yeah, him and Callie are probably tied in there for the oldest two boars in there.
Yep, decidedly different is on page 25 in your mature boar section, kind of bottom left there in the list of boars we have there. But I have a lot of different guys that'll talk to me, and I think everybody's scratching their head trying to figure out the next move in the Yorkshire deal. It's hard to escape the RIY prefix or the Ricker deal, and I work with Kevin pretty regularly, and I love his Yorkshire mind, but even Kevin sits there and goes, I've got to figure out my next step. And some guys go back to frozen semen, some guys just use what else is new. But another thing to consider is a boar that's been around for a while that we're fortunate to still be able to collect and use. I know when I was walking through the boars last week with Rusty, Jim Grimm, I know that crew, and even the Olsen crew possibly are diving back into this guy. And I know some folks will sit here and go, well, as a young pig, he was plenty moderate and plenty stout, and that's kind of not where we're going. But how many of you guys tried to elevate him and make him so cool-fronted and tall-shouldered and attractive, and you lost a lot while doing it? And that's not just in the Yorkshire deal, that's in a lot of breeds. So some of these older guys that were maybe a little stouter for where we're currently at, utilized on these right sows that got skinny in a hurry, this guy still has good. And so if you've got one that's absolutely, Air Jordan looking up front and just really good looking tall shouldered, and you need back and rib and function back in them in terms of just grow and mass, this guy's going to do it. And still semen quality looks pretty good from what I heard, Rusty. And I mean, it's something you forget about because he's old news, but don't sleep on the older guys.
Yeah, that's, absolutely true. These older guys that we keep along for a long time in the stud, they're ones that we're going to utilize later on down the line to bring them back in. We were sitting there, he said Jim Grimm and, Olson's and that deal. They buy a decidedly different son from Kulos. They're down at Belton this year. Jim buys one from Rick Whitman, a decidedly different son there. Down there, Concrete, off of Online. Decidedly different is going to get utilized. If you, like he was saying, if you want to open them up again, you want to put a little bit more rib into them, if you want to broaden them up in that chest fork, that's the kind of guy you want to use. That's decidedly different.
The next boar that'll be coming in is Raise the Stakes. He's on page 25 as well with Decidedly. And he's an ante-up best man from the Kraft crew. And another old boar we're going to trot out that I told Rusty when they brought him out earlier, I said, there's still some good in this guy, and I'm glad you guys will be able to show him in the open house and let folks, again, reconsider some of these older guys when all the young semen's kind of taken up at different times. You get in a pinch and you need one that's going to generate and create some babies that you can still sell and utilize and do well in the ring and feed.
And Jake's sitting there just teeing off right into the next thing I was going to say about Raise the Stakes. He makes marketable, sellable little hogs. His little pigs sell for big dollars. Bates crew had a sale on showpig.com. You can go back and research it through there. They sold some high dollar barras and some gilts out of that deal. I sold some high dollar barras and gilts out of that deal. This guy makes them marketable, he makes them sellable, and he makes them good early. He also makes them good later too. You're going to see that here coming up in the next board that we're going to bring to you, a son of him. He was a $500 purchase, and I'm open and transparent about how much I pay for boars. Air Jordan was a $1,500 purchase down at Expo. These boars that we spend a lot of money on, some don't generate. Some of these guys that, don't cost a whole lot of money generate a little bit better than some of those high dollar boars. Keep that in mind in that situation. Use the pieces that are right for you. Use the pieces that are right for your program. Use the pieces that are going to help you generate to the next level. This guy's got a lot of good. I've bred him back to all cap. He's going to get bred back to all caps as mommy. Like I said, I had a little Imperial. As soon as she's done weaning him off, I'm breeding him back to him. This guy looks and mirrors Tweet This so much. If you guys would have seen Tweet This back at the old open house, this guy looks a lot like Tweet. So use that guy with confidence. He's really, really good where he's really good. Protect him on pasture and set. That's one guy I would protect on pasture. That's raise the stakes.
Rusty had made mention the next board that'll come in is the son out of Raise the Stakes. He's called Sparkler Bomb, and he's on page 10, the bottom half of that page. Raise the Stakes forever and back on the dam of all caps.
Living not too far away from Tyler and Tiffany Sparks, I get to see their program all the time. I get to go to their house and look at their program, and they actually came and bought quite a bit of hogs from me. And one of the hogs that they came and bought from me was a Forever, back on the dam of all caps. I thought that gilt was incredibly good. I got a litter-mate sister to that sow that they have over there at their program, and they said, "What should we use on that program?" I said it just a minute ago. I'm taking Raise the Stakes to all caps as mommy. This is the program, the same kind of deal. This guy offers a lot of top hip shape, a lot of powered package. He is a carrier. This guy got injured when he was a little early, when he was younger, so he strides a little funky right off his right rear leg there. But this guy, as far as look, fundamentals, bone, substance, power, I think this guy's got an incredible amount of good in him. I really like Sparkler Bomb a whole lot. He'll actually get rebred back into the program here at Lean Value Sires too as well.
With Forever back there on the dam side too, just a note, I know a lot of people like selling cool colored babies. There is some color back in there, so you take it to any color that sits back in your sows and you will get a whole Skittles bag. It'll be fun to look at.
And that goes for all caps too. His mommy's a calico. So his mommy's a calico, the whole entire litter-mate sister's a calico, the granddam's a calico. You're going to get a whole bag full of color. Same thing there. So.
Going to flip the script, and the next board that'll come in, we're going to show some Hereford love, and we're going to bring in Whippersnapper. Another guy that, has a little more age to him but needs to be used. The Hereford deal is absolutely blowing up, and now that there's a Hereford division at Expo and things are getting a little crazy, and, if I don't see Doug Loof put a Hereford up, I swear every other minute out there, you need some different guys attacking this breed. And, again, the Bona Vista crew does a really, really good job of working and breeding good hogs. And this guy falls, I would say, right on that radar being used back on some of that loose stuff.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he is that Big Red Machine Family Guy pedigree. He was a reserve champion Hereford Bora there at Ohio State Fair last year. We saw a lot of success out of this guy too as well. The Bona Vista crew had really good success. Actually, the champion, our customer appreciation sale that we had there in Richmond, the champion gilt overall, I mean, she beat the crossbred, she beat everything 'cause she was so cool, was a whippersnapper. That whole entire deal was pretty darn cool. This whippersnapper program and where these Herefords are going. If you want a breed to try out to see if you can go into some different kind of pedigrees and stuff, the Herefords are where you need to be looking at because that breed's progressively growing every day. Whippersnapper.
We're going to jump from the Herefords and go back to the crossbreds. On page 8, the top of it is Vortex. He's a hurricane, which I know a lot of times it gets hard to travel all the way out to Iowa, but if you ever get a chance, stopping at the Brenning Ranch and taking a look at some of those boars that he's got there in stud, it gets really fun. And Iowa market hogs aren't much different than Ohio market hogs. All you guys like to keep them stout and keep them cool looking and let them manage what mass they have. They definitely aren't going to get skinny. And the Hurricane line certainly doesn't either. And then when you throw in the fact that this guy's mommy would be Mouse's mom, which out in Indiana we're well acquainted with the whole line there from the Decker crew. And so this guy's pedigree is extremely good and an interesting piece to use in a crossbred program. And is he perfect? No, but there's some good value in this guy, and definitely something from just a pedigree standpoint alone could be used on a sow or two for sure.
Vortex is not probably going to have the best showing today. He had an abscess, and I'm like I said, transparent with everybody. Vortex had an abscess on his left rear leg there, in between his two toes. It ruptured, so we've been treating him. So he's a little hobbly off that left rear leg there. Vortex, in terms of one that's going to open you up, add a lot of body cavity, add a lot of chest floor, add a lot of whole dimensions in this. This angle that we're going within the show pig industry, where we're making them taller fronted, we're making them better pastured, we're making them jacked and goose necked. This guy is going to work on those females that are that jack fronted, because basically what we're going to do is we're going to start closing them up. To bring them back open and widen them up, this is the kind of guy that you want to use. Vortex was kind of one of those deals. I sent a picture after we got him pictured to Shane, and it was kind of funny. He says, "Man, you got that guy too cheap from me." So, that if with Shane telling me that, and then Shane sitting there saying, this guy's one of those things that I think this guy could have went on to Indiana State Fair or another thing, showed very well and brought a lot of money, and I think this guy's incredible. I'm going to use Vortex on the litter mate to all caps as mommy. So I'm going to use that guy pretty well in confidence too as well. So that's Vortex.
We'll add some red color back in the ring here in just a second. We're going to bring structure in. Older boar from Doug Stewart that is well known nationally. It was sitting at Doug's place for a little while, getting used pretty heavily from a lot of very key red breeders. And when I saw him post that young picture up that you guys might see up there on the screen, I thought, man, Doug's got a good one there to use across sows. And then, a little while later when Rusty snagged that one, I remember telling Rusty, I said, that's a good acquisition to bring in. And American Outlaw and the fullback pedigree is a little different than some of the red stuff that's out there that's popular, and so that works well. And he's an impressive older boar when we get him out here and get him driving through the ring, and one that definitely still should be considered.
This guy will stouten you up in a hurry. I mean, it was kind of one of those things when I went to Doug's. I left National Bora Show last year, and I went down to Doug's to pick up a gilt that I got from him from Iowa State Fair that was a high rent daughter. And, I saw structure. And I said, man, that guy I got to have. Well, Doug wouldn't sell him to me then. So, unfortunately, I didn't get him when I wanted to get him. I begged, pleaded, made a few phone calls to Doug and said, hey, listen, just let's try to get this guy instead. I think he's got a lot of good use. I think he's going to have a lot of potential and a lot of good Duroc programs. And I think he's one that can be utilized by a lot of different breeders. And, I'm using him on some high rent daughters and some stuff that's a little bit taller fronted, a little bit more prettier fronted. But this guy, in terms of overall mass, rib cage, his skull carry, the amount of width that his skull carry has, it travels through his center body cavity all the way back to his hip, is very impressive. That guy, he's going to open you up on another level. He's going to make you so many dimensions, it's going to be crazy. If I were to protect him just a little bit, protect him on pastern set. He's probably one that's got a comfortable pastern set, but just protect him there a little bit. Maybe make them a little bit wider. When they get this big, they start closing it up a little bit. So I'd maybe make them a little bit wider underneath, but I think that guy's got a lot of good to him in that structure.
Don't let his age and maturity fool you. Anybody that goes through Doug's place, he oftentimes keeps an emphasis on keeping some muscle and some stoutness in him. So I would say, especially you got class act, he's the one daughters that are really cool and tall fronted and attractive, and you need another shot of stoutness back in him. This guy could definitely do it.
The next guy we're going to bring in is one of my first purchases of when I bought lean value sires. I bought him down at Duncan. I got him off of Brandon Fannin and crew down there at Darby Valley Genetics. This guy was down at Duncan, and I thought, man, he's pretty darn cool. And I could use him in my program, and I know a lot of people, other people that can use him in his program. This is Redneck Romance. He's a kissing cousins out of hand. It was a $15,000 board purchase. You know, we've seen some good success out of Redneck Romance right now. Champion Hampshire, you know, those Okies down there in the Southwest and everything, they show by breed characteristics. Champion Hampshire down in the Northwest District that Anne Frank shows was a Redneck Romance. I believe the champion, I think it might have been Pickaway County or reserve champion down at Pickaway County was a Redneck Romance. This guy's done a lot of good. If I were to protect him a little bit, I'd protect him on that front knee. He wants to knee in just a little bit on those front two. He's extended. He's got a cool height to the shoulder. He's got a big top. He's got a good stride off his rear too, and he's got a big hip. I like that guy quite a bit. I'm going to use him pretty heavy in my program. That's Redneck Romance.
The next boar that'll be coming in is going to be Imperial, and he's a distinct visionary. As Rusty cleans up his mess on aisle 5. Little shavings, don't draw one of those, okay? I don't think there's a name on it.
Yeah, I don't know. There might be. Somebody might have come in here and rigged it a little bit. So let's get down in here and void the shavings, and we'll draw for somebody else. Our good friends over here at the pellet place have donated some crumbled pellets for us. We're going to definitely give some of those out. So the first winner I'm going to draw right now is going to get 5 bags of premium crumble pellets for their bedding. Tony Baker. Tony Baker, just make sure you go to the office and let them know that you got 5 bags of the crumble pellet.
For those of you that might follow, I mean, let's be honest, we all do it. Follow the online show pig world and you know, look at boars on studs and see how some of the guys that have more of a national following, how their boars do. Distinct has been an interesting one, and for those of you that may have saw him last fall there at Laird's, you had to admire a lot of things about him, and that was just the fact you can make one that tall-shouldered yet that stout-bladed and that big-legged within themselves. And Imperial takes, I think, does the best job I've probably seen yet of combining the distinct and visionary line. He's still got his visionary head. He's still attractive and great in his design and comfortable, and yet he still has some distinct squareness of pin and hip. And any of you that, I know we had some distinct hogs as babies, and I'm sure he'll sire some of that. They are some of the more grizzly-legged things you will see as babies, and it's kind of fun to watch them grow and develop. Sometimes they can be a little greener, and especially with this pedigree, I mean, obviously he's young. We don't know a bunch yet, but he might be one that you take to one that can make them a little clubbier as babies. But there's a lot of good value to this guy, and from a pattern and presence standpoint, still being comfortable, which still wins hog shows right now, that he fits a lot of those bills.
I definitely agree. I mean, this guy's got a lot of good to him. You know, he hit us pretty hard down there at Belton this year. I thought, in terms of fundamentals, this guy is pretty cool. You know, like he was sitting there saying, I'd like to take him to a little bit more center body cavity, a little bit more rib cage to open him up there a little bit more. But this guy's going to, I mean, he's got a big old stout leg in him. I think he's got a lot of good as far as that goes. One that, you know, I'm using pretty heavily on my sow herd. I know a lot of people are using him quite heavily. He is one that is selling out most of the time. So if you're going to book Imperial, you need to book him early. All Caps is the same way. Vortex is the same way. Invasion is the same way. And there's a couple other boards that I'll key off to let you know that the availability on them are getting tight. So keep him in mind. You want to make one really tall fronted in the red breed, one really, really cool fronted in the red breed, this is your guy. Plus, he's going to add some center body cavity to you. I think this guy's incredible. Backdoor was a purchase that we purchased down there at Belton 2 years ago. He's a prison-style tribute. He was one that was, he was 7th in class. We wasn't for sure if he was going to make it through the sale. We thought we were going to have to buy him back at the pen, but he hit us real hard. One of the things that Kevin Went said there at the sale, he says, let's see who's paying attention to the hog show. Let's see who's going to sneak in through the back door and get this guy bought. He was one that I snuck in the back door. I got him bought right, and he's done some good. Isler's have had a lot of success with backdoor. There's been a few other guys, that have some success on backdoor. Backdoor is one that I think, in terms of using on those structure females, those stouter-legged females, this guy would work pretty darn good.
Definitely one, and as a mature boar, when we were looking at him again last week, and Rusty and I were looking through him, I said, man, does that one I got a back in him, and man, does he have some rib cage in him, and all those fit, and yet he's so comfortable. And so, again, all that's relevant, and with some prison style, especially north of the Mason-Dixon, you may not see as much of that influence. And so definitely a little different twist of a pedigree to insert into your red herd, and so definitely one to keep on your short list if you're looking to cover some red sows.
Let's go ahead and do another drawing here. This will be a big one. This will be for 2 free doses of semen to any boar and stud. Zach Brown. Zach Brown, you won 2 free doses to any boar and stud. Congratulations, Zach Brown. Let's give him a round of applause. Yeah.
Annihilator's an older boar that we're bringing in here. It comes from A.J. Lewis, the Bad Donkey Sweet Emotions hog. And the Bad Donkey stuff's been interesting. A lot of folks, again, an Iowa breeder that maybe some folks out east don't maybe keep as close of a tab on, but the Bad Donkey stuff's worked really good for A.J. It's really created some competitive show barrows. And what you'd be surprised by, you see a pretty much a predominantly black boar here, but if you take him to anything with some blue back in him, that Bad Donkey stuff will pull some blue back out. So again, if you're trying to think about color, attractive, a lot of us sell these babies young, trying to create showable babies that have some color. This guy will bring some color to the table and a really cool, moderate look.
And he's keying right off of it. These rear 2 feet have gotten more gray the older this boar gets. He's starting to blue up a little bit off those rear 2. He's one that, when we were down at Belton that I saw, and, David Korb was here, we kind of hit off pretty hard on. We knew that we wanted a pretty good boar to add to the cross-boar lineup for last year's fall. But this guy's actually done well, and he still needed to be utilized fairly well. Reserve champion Allen County Fair, Bill Garrett and them had there was an Annihilator. There's been a lot of good Annihilator sons and daughters out of that deal. I think it was McMacken from Shelby County had a crossbred boar down at Indiana State Fair that did fairly well out of that deal. If I were to give him something, I'd take him to something with a little bit more width underneath. I would like to open him up on those front 2. I'd like to open him up on those rear 2 just a little bit. But I think that guy's got a pretty cool look, pretty cool design. He still needed to be utilized in a lot of different ways. This was our Ohio State Fair Duroc purchase. This is Fling from Bubblin's and Edmonstone Genetics. You want to talk about one that's going to make some barrows. This guy's he's a barrow design kind of Duroc boar. Is he big frame? No. He's definitely not one of the bigger frame Duroc boars that are out there. Does he need a little bit of stoutness? Yes. But this guy's, he's incredible on structure. He's incredible on feet and legs. I think that guy's got a lot of good to him. He's got the right look. He's one that's going to be used in a lot of different pieces. He's got width up above and width below that chest floor. He's got a little bit of width in there. I'd like to change him in a few ways. This guy was actually his dam would have been a bred gilt purchased from Jackson Show Pigs there. And I believe that gilt, if I'm correct, Bobolins is here, and if I'm wrong, correct me. That dam is littermate to Kingdom Come. That dam is a littermate to Kingdom Come. So he's a pretty good, interesting little red boar. I think he's definitely going to sire some Boras and maybe an occasional few boars there down the line too. That is Fair Fling. I got to kind of go off script here a little bit too. How I came up with the Fair Fling, Jake, you like this too. The Fair Fling name. My last year showing at Ohio State Fair, and the last year I was there, I had a Fair Fling with the Dew-Rock Queen. So that's how he got his name. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
We're getting really, really personal now, Rusty. Nobody wants to know. Nobody wants to know.
If anybody knows who that Dew-Rock Queen is, because I don't remember her name either. So, I mean, if anybody knows her name, please find her and tell her I'm married now, but I just want to know what happened to her.
Classy guy here, Rusty Bingham, owner of Lean Value. Next in here on a more serious note, we'll go into the Olsen crossbred Bora, a mature hog invasion. He's a visionary son back on a Jethro, and these guys like Olsen and Grimm, they'll bring in different crossbred pieces. They utilize them in their program, and you won't hear a lot from them because they really retain a lot of stuff and build. And this guy has some value, obviously, just coming from a firm that believes in hogs being productive and still offering some value. This guy does it, and he gets used. I think Rusty said he gets used more than maybe you'd anticipate, just because it's a pedigree that being a visionary son on a Jethro, that's not something overly popular. It's swamping the internet pages, but no, I mean this guy has value and definitely has matured into a good hog.
Oh, I agree. This guy, Chuck and Ben came up to me down there at Duncan and said, hey, I told him, I said, I really like this boar. I think he's got good pieces. I think he's one that's going to be utilized in a different way. He's got the visionary tall-fronted kind of deal. Is he long like visionary neck? No. But he's tall-fronted. And he's got a big center body cavity to him. He's got a big, massive rib shape in this guy. He's one that I'd use on those females that are a little bit tall, maybe a little bit more extended. Stouting them up a little bit on bone. That visionary, and then back on the Jethro. Jethro, if anybody's not familiar with the Jethro line, that was the first hillbilly bone son that Kirk Swanson sold to Chuck and Ben Olsen. Kirk Swanson's actually got worked on a contract with me with this guy over the spring. Kirk's going to use him again. Kirk's really high on him over there at Fort Cake Farms, where hillbilly bone came from.
Next board that we'll have coming in here in just a second will be page 24 in our mature boards. It's Mr. Nice Guy. I'll let Rusty probably highlight this guy more just because he's been around a little bit longer.
Mr. Nice Guy was kind of the off-the-farm purchase from RAR Genetics. Rick and them, they're a really great group of guys up there. I really appreciate what they've done with their program, and they want to use some of the lean value sires. They have their own boar stud. I use other boar studs just like they use other boar studs. He wants to use some boars that I have instead. And he says, well, I got a red boar I want to show you and drive it out to you. And he says, I think he's pretty interesting. He drove him out, and I said, man, that guy's pretty cool. And I said, well, what's his pedigree? Yeller. Well, I'd never heard of Yeller, so I had to do a little bit of research on the pedigree myself. Yeller was a Cedar Ridge boar that sold down at Duncan. And then Diamond in the Rough goes back to the Vaughn Jackson program. And everybody knows the Vaughn Jackson program down there. Vaughn You know, they don't get a whole lot of attention if they can make it. That's why they call them Diamond in the Rough. That program for Dave and Carly Martin and all them has worked out pretty darn good. This guy's got some bone. I mean, he's got some foot size to him. He's really cool fronted. He's really square from the blade back to his back of his hip. This guy is as balanced squareness as you can make him. I know that's a funny term, but he is as square balanced as you can make him from that blade back to his hip. Now, is he perfect off his rear too? No. I'd like to change the fundamentals off his rear too. I'd like to widen him up, change the angles maybe off those rear two legs, but as far as center body cavity, squareness, cool fronted, bone, this guy's an outcross. He's a light program and a lot of that stuff that's out there. This guy could be utilized on a lot of those things. Everybody looks for an outcross. We had, I think it was the family from Tennessee down there. They sold an outcross pedigree boar that did really well for them down there at Belton for like $35,000. We're all looking for outcross pedigrees. This is your outcross pedigree Duroc boar to utilize here at Lean Value Sires. Keep this guy in mind.
The next boar that'll be coming in is on page 22. His name's Swineheart. He's a loudmouth, reason why. Rusty got really, really creative. You could tell he put a lot of thought into this name on this boar. Bred by the Swineheart crew.
Well, you know, with a name like Swineheart, I mean, you know, my last name's Bingham, so I got Bingham. I'm Ham on the end.
It's getting really creative.
I know, it's creative, you know. But from that same standpoint, what a great crew the Swineheart family is. You know, this guy, you know, I thought he hit me pretty hard for a unique piece for the spot breed. You know, the spot breeds, we see them a lot of the times. They're stouter skulled, they got a lot of rib cage to them, but they don't have a whole lot of look sometimes. This guy's got quite a bit of look. He's extended, he's tall fronted, he's got a great pastern set to him, and he's balanced. He's square coming and going. You know, he was the reserve champion there at Ohio State Fair. I loaded up there at Ohio State Fair. And like I put it in there, ideal pastern, toes, and leg placement. This guy's pretty cool. You know, I think he's going to generate, you take him to some of those like private stash females or something to that effect, or something, the Bowser line. This guy's going to improve off that line. This Swineheart boar is pretty cool for a spot boar.
We'll jump from the spots back into the crossbred and bring out an old boar that when we were going through the stud, I laughed a little bit with Rusty, and we were going through there, and I said, "You still have Quest around?" And it's one of those deals where I know he was really high on this boar when he first brought him in, and he's still done him well. And honestly, as a mature hog, he shows pretty well out here. And I know Rusty has a pretty soft spot for this guy still sticking around and what he's done, so I'll let Rusty highlight him a little further.
You know, Quest had a big influence on, you know, from my childhood on the Bates program down there. We purchased High Dollar and Quest, and we're not showing High Dollar today. High Dollar didn't take the move as well as we would like to, so I'm actually recouping them. We almost lost them a couple times. But I'm going to tell you, those High Dollar babies are really, really cool. Along with this guy's babies, they're really, really cool. Easy, sellable, marketable, tall fronted, extended, lots of power and mass. This guy actually put some color into him. He's a semi-point monster pipe. That monster pipe female is a full sib to colossal. He is a negative package. I mean, he's extreme amount of power. He's extremely square on top. You want to take him and widen him up a little bit. I know he's not as wide as a lot of people would make him. You want to maybe stouten him up just a little bit. But I think that guy, in terms of pastern set and correcting some pasterns and bringing you up on your pasterns, this guy will bring you up on your pasterns for sure. You know, and add some power and look. I just had a $20 gift certificate from Roy White and Show Supplies. So I'm going to draw a name here, and this person, whoever it is going to get a $20 gift certificate. Oh, I hope I don't butcher your last name. Jessica Brinninger. Bringegar. Brinninger. Jessica Brinninger from Springfield, Ohio. You won a $20 gift certificate to Roy's. Come see me after the show, please. Thank you.
Next older Yorkshire boar that came back in here, and I won't go back on my soapbox that I did when Decidedly came out, but again, another Yorkshire boar that will probably, and is already, I know Rusty was telling me last week, getting reincorporated again back into Yorkshire programs because guys are just curious as to what the next step should be. This one's Skull. Obviously, he had a good run there at the Grimm residence before you brought him over. And that was a good steal by Rusty to get him out of there. I know Grimm basically bred every sow at least 3 times, it seems like, to this guy. And so now you've brought him back into Ohio, and it's one that I think I've actually had several people in Indiana ask me over this week, hey, what's Skull still looking like? Is his semen still good? And Rusty, from every indication he's given me, the semen's still good. And they all are just playing with the idea of retying back into this guy just because they're at a loss as to where to go. And so another good proven Yorkshire boar to tie back in. And the Skull daughters and granddaughters by this point are still leaving their mark.
Oh, I totally agree. That was one thing. I went to Jim Grimm's and I actually picked up a few Yorkshire, you picked up a Yorkshire gilt there from Jim that was Denali back on Pathfinder's littermate sister. And that was one of those things. He said, well, what are you thinking you're going to encompass back into her? I said, I might just breed her to Skull. He goes back and looks at that pedigree and says, well, there's shots of Skull already in that pedigree. You're doing the right thing. So when you sit there and hear somebody like Jim Grimm and those guys and those kind of programs they're saying that, they're going to utilize some of the older pedigrees and bring it back into their influence, even though it may be 3 or 4 generations back. That's those guys that are selling those high-dollar boars and selling those high-dollar pigs, and those guys that are putting together good programs. Listen to what they say. That's what I've always done. If I can learn something from somebody, be it the guy that has 1 sow or the guy that has 100, I'm learning something new every day. So keep him definitely in mind. This is Skull.
We'll jump from one proven guy to the guy that probably is still as popular as he's ever been, and not just because of his color pattern, but because he has actually effectively generated hugs each and every year in the winter circle, and that would be Callie Chrome.
Callie Chrome, I think, was ahead of his time, and I think he still is. I think he's one individual that, from tallness of front, extension. I think this guy's has a lot of good rib shape, hip design. I think this guy's pretty incredible, and he's still siring them. Reserve champion there at Union County Fair that Isler's was a California Chrome. I know there's been several other county fair and champions. I'm just going off of what other people tell me. That's another thing. If you guys have champions out of our boars or reserves, make sure you get me a picture. I can't do anything for you or post it up online and all that kind of stuff. Get it to me. Callie Chrome is one of those kind of guys that's generating a lot of banners still today. He's one that needs used in a lot of programs. He's going to be used from people that have seen him and people hopefully here seeing him today. You got a few sows that you want to breed this guy too. I encourage you to do so because he's got a lot of good. A boar that was way ahead of his time and going to be back there on top here again very soon. Let's go ahead. We got a little bit of time. Let's draw somebody else here. This is a quick draw for a bundle of high-tech rods and a thing of lube. Roy Lucas from West Portsmouth, Ohio. So you get a bundle of high-tech rods and a thing of lube. Congratulations, Roy. This is Nuttin' Better. Nuttin' Better was a non-show purchase from the Went crew there in Plain City, Ohio. Kevin called me up and said, hey, I want to have a boar that I'm selling online that I think's got a lot of good to him. Could you come down and take a look at him? And I'll have Trevor show him to you and tell me what you think. It was one of those things I said, you know what? This guy's got a lot of good. He's got a lot of center body cavity. He's got a lot of power. He's got a lot of mass. He's got a little bit of look too. He reminds me so much of the Brenning boar. This is what I think the Brenning boar is going to mature into. This is what the Brenning boar is going to look like eventually later on down the line. He's a Sling Blade 83-2 Fortune Sugar Daddy. The Grand Dam was the 04th overall gilt there at Ohio State Fair in 2014. Nothing Better is one that they're going to put, and Kevin's using in his programs and doing all that kind of stuff. And Nothing Better is a carrier too as well, just FYI. Jake, actually, we were sitting there, we were talking about this guy. We went to the other farm, which is over at the other quarantine farm, and we brought this guy back over here. And Jake actually had the privilege of judging his littermate sister from the Kimmel family. That was, what was she champion at, Jake? One of the jackpots there in Indiana there. This guy really hit me hard down at Summertide Conference. And I thought this was a designed, Earl Kane design kind of deal. I thought this was one that Earl was going to put into play. Tall fronted, runs uphill, one of the deepest body cavities from the top of his blade down to his breastplate. This guy is deep. That means he's going to generate females. That means he's also going to have some fundamentals in generating a boar or two or a bear or two later on down the line. This guy is stout hipped, stout backed. I think he's got a lot of good. I think he's the right amount of bone. I mean, you could give him a shade more bone, but I think this guy's chest floor is incredible. If I were to protect him a little bit, I'd protect him off his rear too, just a little bit. But I think this guy's got a lot of good to him, and I think this guy's going to have a lot of purpose. Another guy, those structure females, those heavier body frame do-rocks that run downhill, this is the guy that you want to utilize in that kind of program. This is What the Hill, too, by the way. We had to figure out a name for him, and we used Hill All Good. So, real creative there, too, again, Jake. Let's go ahead and do some more drawings. Let's do another 5 bags of crumbled pellets here. Laura Scott, Mineral City, Ohio. 5 bags of crumbled pellets. Make sure you load it up today, please. Give her a round of applause. I like it. Come on. Yeah. Are we still having fun yet? Is anybody bored? I'm not bored. Are you bored?
Of course not. They have to listen to us. They're going to start falling asleep.
Yeah, I know, right?
Drink On is the Berkshire boar that just hit the ring, and he's on page 12. He's a drinking class off the reservation. Came from Jackson Show Pigs. He's owned with Lockmans, and this was a boar at Springfield that I know, Rusty. I don't know if he's just lucky or if he can, see the future, because the moment this boar got really, really more valuable and quite a bit more attractive as an option to use is the fact that when Laird's by his daddy off Mox and back up to the barn to unload him, he died. So drinking class is out of the equation. A really popular boar at Mox if you didn't get to see him, and that was an impressive individual. And so here's a son. There's not going to be a ton of sons out there left out of him, and definitely one that offers value. And the mama side of this deal is, goes back to the OIE Grand. That was a $33,000 Heimer purchase. This kind of is a blend of some Mach and Heimer Berkshire programs, and this guy offers a lot of value.
He's definitely one in terms of, making some show bears and some boars. I think this guy's got a lot of good to him. He really hit that Berkshire there at Summertide Conference. A lot of the Berkshire breeders were paying attention on what that boar was who he was going to be bought by and who he was going to purchase. I thought he was undervalued. I thought he was going to bring a lot more money than what he actually did, and a lot of people said that I stole this guy coming out of that barn. A lot of the Whipples utilize them. Ed Creason, I think Knobloch's said something about utilizing them. There's a whole slew of Berkshire breeders that are talking about utilizing this guy. And it helps, like he just said, with drinking class passing on. This guy's a great option to fill that void where drinking class was at. Great Berkshire boar. Again, another one for those crossbred females. If you're wanting to make a difference in your crossbred program, look at that guy. He's got a lot of power, got a lot of shape, and a lot of mass to him. He's one that I would consider using in your crossbred females too as well. That would be drink on. So the next guy coming in is Muzzle Fuzz. We kind of got creative out of the name. I don't know if you guys seen my dad walking around here. He's got a nice set of handlebars, so we named his daddy Handlebar. You know, Dad's got, it's kind of one of those things we were trying to come up with a creative name. We ran through a list of them, and I thought, Muzzle Fuzz kind of just fit the bill. Ed Creason and them had this guy down here at a summer type conference, and he was another one that kind of hit everybody pretty hard on that deal. Muzzle Fuzz is really tall fronted. He's got the Bora look, Bora design, but I think he's got a really cool hip and hind end in him. I'd like to tweak him off his rear too, just a nickel. But I think, for a Berkshire program standpoint, this grade is a viable option, especially with Drink On, its popularity and the way he's selling right now. This guy's a viable option to fill in that Drink On line. And I want to relay about his daddy too, because we're not showing his daddy Handlebar today. Handlebar was kind of a sneaky steal too on my part. Handlebar was shown up at National Bora Show, and a lot of people go to the National Bora Show. There's not a lot of boar studs that buy at National Bora Show. It's kind of late in the season. He was kind of one of those purchases that I found up there that I thought, where'd that guy come from, and what is he going to do and generate? And that guy did a lot of good. Handlebar came from Peyton Hill down in the Texas location there.
This boar we just had come in is Banner Addiction. Rusty evidently liked this boar enough and his brother that he needed two of them. And I would agree with him when he trotted this guy, or when we were looking at him in the boar tour, both him and his brother, I know they're not the most mammoth-legged things in the world. We're not going to use fun metaphors to talk about all their bone and feature that they have. But when you get past that, there's a lot of really cool elevation and look in them. And for what they offer in terms of head shape and elevation and look, they still offer some spread up high and some roll to their rib. And anybody that's fed on some of these cuter-headed cross Boras can struggle with some body shape, and this guy still offers it. There's some unique pieces here, and no doubt you need to take it to some of those moderate, really fat-legged ones. But beyond that, this guy offers a lot of value.
And that's totally true. I think the elevation and the point of the shoulder, the extension that this guy's got. This guy, he's not having a good show today. I still wanted to show him he's got a staff, his back broken staff there a little bit, so he's a little tender on top of his back. But this guy, Kevin, when he was auctioneering the state fair show there, he said, if you got a Bora that looks like this guy coming this week to Ohio State Fair, you're going to do pretty darn good. This guy, in terms of being a pretty cool pedigree, being a total addiction, which was the boar that Triple B Sires buys down there at a summer type conference, back on the old bone collection deal. Now that bone collection female on the backside of these two pedigrees on Winning Addiction and Banner Addiction deal, that mama is actually litter mates to the Grand and Reserve MQP pigs at Ohio State Fair the last year that they showed the MQP pigs there. So this guy's got an incredible amount of good in him, and his litter mate brother you'll see here in a second. I like him quite a bit too.
Since we're going to sound a little repetitive, obviously from brother to brother, yeah, and on the website you'll see that the picture gets kind of flipped around, and they've got to edit a few things, but here's Winning Addiction. Littermate, we just ran through the pedigree, the value there. You'll see a lot of similarities between brothers. This guy might arguably offer a bit more forearm. But, within the pair, this is a really good pair of boars that need to be utilized on some of those more moderate, shorter cannon, fat-legged sows that need some elevation and some look still. And these guys work. And I'll put a little shameless plug while you guys get a chance to look at this guy, since we kind of talked about the litter prior. And, just from the Mormon Showtech side and what we've worked on, these guys are all on our Mormon Showtech boar stud ration. That is actually a national product. So if you guys have some boars at home that you're on, you want to consider using something like that. There's some really good technology laid in that feed to help towards semen motility and quality and keeping basically cell regeneration at a really high level. So, Rusty's been using that now for the better part of, I think, about a year and a half, and that's been going well. And we just went ahead and started customizing a grower diet for some of his younger boars that just kicked off this last month. So we'll keep working on that. And then the sow side and baby pig side, I know Rusty's been utilizing our program, whether it's our Sow 16 product, and we just released Grand Sow on the Showtech side, another good product. We just launched crate milk at Expo, so or not crate milk, but our milk replacer, it replaces crate milk. All of those products are good ones. I know as you guys head into that deal, all I can recommend to you guys, no matter what feed program you use, is don't shortchange your money makers. Don't shortchange your sow base. Make sure that if it costs you an extra 10 cents a day on that sow, how much more is that worth if you can get another pig or two out of her that's quality that you can sell there in the spring? And so if I see anybody cut corners half the time, they'll drop $500 or plus on semen, but yet feed the sow a pretty mediocre, cheap ration, and they're not really getting the goodies they need into her to generate what you're looking to do and make money in the spring on. So just make sure you're taking care of the sows as you get through the spring, and then as you get into starter period, getting those babies off the right start. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me afterwards. I'm not going to put feed plugs in the whole time. I just thought I'd go ahead and put it in right there, and we got done with Winning Addiction. But we're going to jump over to a Yorkshire boar that I would say after this summer might be known, and that would be Amplify. Definitely a boar that I will tell you that Rusty got real lucky at the dollar value you got him for out of summer type, and the amount of guys I talked to at other opens, boar stud open houses, even boar stud owners, that said, I would have never guessed he would have generated like he did. They thought he was a nice hog, but they didn't give him his due. And it's hard. It's a guessing game on all these guys, so you get them in and start making babies. And this guy, most notably, the sire of some pretty high dollar boars this summer.
Well, this is that generating deal where Amplify. I think he's got a great program coming out of that Amped Up program. That the Amped Up board that generated a whole lot of high dollar boars there down at Summer Type Conference. His daddy, you go to every boar stud, there's an Amped Up boar in stud. I had to find the Amped Up boar that was going to fit my program, that's going to fit my piece. For the amount of money that I got this guy for, I thought, he's very, very reasonable. He's very, very cool. He's very, very attractive, and he's very, very big topped, and he's very, very big hipped. And I thought, man, his pastern set's pretty darn good too. It was one of those things. If you ask Matt Titus, I know Matt's here today, he didn't even know I was interested in this guy. And that was one of those things. He said, Rusty, I didn't even know you even liked that guy. And I didn't realize who I was bidding against when I was bidding against it. And then Tracy Lorenzen comes up and says, hey, I want to buy into that guy. I'm going to utilize him in my program. He's the right length of body in that Amped Up program. If you look at some of those Amped Up deals, they get a little bit longer body. This guy's got the right length of body. He's got the right kind of top end shape. He's got the right skull carry. I think this guy has a whale of a lot of good in him. He's going to be used in a lot of Yorkshire programs, and he's getting booked up very fast. So if you're going to use this guy, Amplify, you need to book him early because he's one that's very, very popular.
I think people just missed him because the Amped Up son that everyone falls behind, rather than watching all the high dollar boars that went to upper hand. And those are good hogs in their own right. But this guy definitely will see some good use. Next board we're going to have up is Knockout, but I'll let Rusty go ahead and do a drawing here real quick.
Okay, 2 free doses. Tim Carmack. You get 2 free doses of any boar and stud. So, Tim Carmack. Let's give him a round of applause. You know, this guy was a. I went to Expo and I watched the Chester show because the Chester show everybody focuses on in Springfield. They bring all the predominant Chesters that come to Springfield, and Expo kind of gets overlooked, from that same standpoint. And when this guy knockout hit the ring, I said, "Man, this guy's an athlete. Man, he's cool-headed. He's got the extension. He's got the look. He's got top shape. He's got hip shape." I mean, I think he's okay bone. I like to give him maybe a nickel more. But I think this guy is, in terms of being one of the guys that are going to generate, and he's an outcross again to some of the Chester breeds out there, the Hill Jacks and all that kind of stuff. He's an over-the-top Walter. It was one of those things, and Schminky, who's a part of the Mormon Show Tech crew, he asked me, he said, how'd that Chester boar end up panning out from the one that you got at Expo? This guy was third in class there at Expo. I said, really good. I showed him some picture and some stuff like that. And he says, that doesn't even look, he says, that looks like the same boar, but he looks 10 times better than he did at Expo. I think this Chester boar is pretty cool.
Aged extremely well, and most Chester programs by this point probably have a fair amount of bone working in them. So to get this athletic of one that's this comfortable in his build and still offering some shape and mass and look, this guy does a lot of good things.
And that would be, again, this guy is Knockout, and he's from the Rourke sisters. This is Knockout. So this guy is pretty interesting. Backstory on this guy. So I get a phone call from Mark Hogue, and I called Mark about a Berkshire gilt that was shown there in Columbus. The little Durst girl showed down there, and I said, there's a whatever it takes shotgun wedding gilt that's here, and I think it's litter mates to your third overall gilt there at Summer Type Conference. He said, yep, that's litter mate gilt. I said, well, I have to buy her. So I ended up buying her. She cost me $8,000. Litter mate gilts there at Hogue's. And he says, you know what? I got a litter mate boar at home. Backstory on this guy: he was living in the back of the barn in the back of a popper. He was brought over in a popper to the Indiana State Fair where I met him and transitioned him over. This guy hasn't seen a whole lot of love. This guy,
not a made-up story.
No.
I mean, going to Black Hawk like I did and being in the part of the Hogue crew, I've been out to the ranch enough, and I thought it was a joke being the family that has as much notoriety as the Hogue crew does and has sold hogs like they have. They seriously do grow half of these boars until they finally pull them out about a month beforehand. They will sit back in these little coop, box, and even, yes, poppers sitting in the back of the property, and they just kind of sit and eat and drink. This guy doesn't have physical fill. He doesn't have fluff guys. He was never fed on. I mean, this guy was just kind of fed to basically exist and have a pulse. And so they pulled him out, and now they brought him in. And this is a good Berkshire boar that I know doesn't show like a show pony, but, I mean, his litter mate sisters, that and alone in his pedigree is awfully, awfully good.
And his name, I don't know if we said the name there, is Real Desire. If you look at the programs, and if you ever heard Mark Hogue judge a show, he always sits there and says, if you got a real desire to raise hogs, these are the kind of hogs you need to utilize. This is the kind of hog you guys need to utilize in your Berkshire programs, or even in your crossbred females. Again, I'm going to reiterate that again. This guy is tall fronted. He's the right kind of frame. He's heavy bone. He's huge footed. I like to fix him back here at the back of his blade a little bit. I'd like to change him maybe a little bit off of rear two fundamentals, but I think this guy's got a lot of good in him. And you got to think, what did that program do? What did his litter mate sisters do? They did a lot. So this guy is really cool. This is Real Desire. This is Omega Red. I've had friends with I've been friends with the Jeff Darner crew from Hamilton and Butler County, Ohio, for a long time. Now I'm going to tell you guys really, if you want to look in at a red boar to utilize, you guys need to look in right now. This red boar needs to be utilized. He is really cool. And Jeff's not really known for making red hogs. He's a first-class, impressive, iconic. This guy's got a lot of shape. He's got a lot of mass to him. He's got some bone. He's got some substance. Like to change him off his rear too, maybe just a nickel, but I think this guy's got some good to him. He's big topped, he's big bladed, big forearm, stout skulled. You know, I think this guy is, you know, in terms of adding some mass and power into your red program while still making him pretty fronted and pretty cool, this guy is relevant. And he's got a pretty cool chest fore in him too. This is Omega Red.
If you think, guys, the first look most judges get coming out of the gate, throw their head up with the whip and get them driving. It's chest and then getting a profile going away. This guy does that and spades. So if you need to make red bears that come out and get pinned quick, this guy could probably do it.
You know, and like I said, it was one of those things. I went to Jeff's to look for a cross boar. He had a couple cross boars there, and he says, I got a red boar you need to take a look at. And that was the first red boar he showed me, and I said, man, he's pretty darn cool. I like this red boar quite a bit. I think everybody needs to start using this guy. Pretty hefty. And based off of first impressions, you know, people haven't seen this guy yet. We'll get him pictured. I know we don't have a picture on the website yet, but, you know, I think this guy's going to picture really well, and I think he's going to sell a lot of scenes. This is the next board coming in. Actually, this is the WD board. This is Kolt, I believe. Is this Kolt? Yes, this is Kolt. This is the WD board. I had to get my mind wrapped around. We got two blue boars back to back. So this is Kolt. So this is if you read Kobolt's pedigree, let me pull it up here real quick. Kolt is Skywire back on a Colin Dibbs' littermate sister. Kolt was actually an acquisition that, you know, we made together with the Bobolins and Edmonstone crew. Kolt is one of those things, if you take the best of the WD program and put it into some situations, this guy is what you want to utilize in the WD program. He's got an impressive drive off his rear too. He's got some rib shape and he's got some definition. You know, I think he's cool fronted. If you want to protect this guy a little bit, protect him on front too. Open him up a little bit. But this is Kolt, and I think this guy's got a well of potential and doing some good things too as well. Let's go ahead and draw somebody else here real quick while we got a little bit of time. Chris Scott, you won a bundle of golden pegs and a lube. Chris Scott. Guy coming in now is Granite Blue. Granite Blue was kind of one of those things. I went to Indiana State Fair to purchase. I thought, I'm gonna look for some crossbred boars, and if I find one that, you know, that's different to the program that we already have, I'm gonna put one in. You know, this guy, in terms of center body cavity and bone and foot size, this guy's pretty darn cool. He's wide based. He's wide moving off of his rear too. He's pretty fronted. I like to protect him there back off the back of the blade. His pedigree reads Blue Chip Bandit Point Maker. He came from Denhart Show Pigs. You know, Bobolins and Edmonstone again teamed up on this one to buy this one with me. You know, we were looking for a couple boars that hit us real hard that was uniquely different that we could utilize in both of our programs, and this is one that I thought was pretty interesting.
We're just about to wrap up the boar segment. I think Rusty will try to gild out here here shortly, just after this guy, for you guys to see. But the last boar we have on the schedule to show today is Like Me Now, and he's a Berkshire boar from Springfield at Summer Type this summer that came from the Knopf crew, and he's a Scandal King Kong. And Kyle does a really good job of putting together Berkshire hogs, and the biggest thing I told Rusty is I complimented him on is it gets really easy. Any one person of us, we can fall in love with certain types of hogs, and we just make a bunch of the same. And one thing I give Rusty is each one of the Berkshire boars you saw today complement each other in different ways and complement different sows. And I think it addresses the Berkshire lineup pretty well of what different types of sows guys are breeding. This guy's definitely a different one too. Probably of all the hogs we've had out here yet, his skull and jawline reads stout. He still offers shape and spread up high, and he's still square coming and going, and still carrying that kind of a look with the extra size and scale he kind of has relative to some of these more moderate Berkshire boars. There's just a lot to be commended there. That ribbon flank and center body, motor and eat, in this guy is really good. And some of these Berkshire Bears aren't eating quite as well as we'd like. So all of that really sets in. When you get that kind of fleshing ability, neck isn't quite as choke-fronted and chiseled as some, but that's because he carries some flesh through his flank and ribs. So really good pieces there. I know Rusty will echo some different things.
That was one of the things Mark Hoke judged the Berkshire show, and he said, this guy covers the most amount of Berkshire females that are out there. He covers the widest swath of Berkshire females that are out there in the pedigree. And, he said, this guy's a true athlete. He's big in his kind. He's right in his kind. He's fundamentally, he's there. Is he the most attractive in his jawline like Jake was talking? No. But, we got to sacrifice some stuff on making them prettier fronted. We got to change some things in these programs to get back to something, because if we breed the same thing phenotypically over and over again, we're putting ourselves into a corner. This guy takes us out of that corner. This is the guy that you're going to utilize on that program. He was a $22,000 board that we got there from Kenton there. I'm 100% transparent. This guy's semen just now up and started running again. He made 4 doses. His semen wasn't very good there for quite a while. He's now just starting to come around. Hopefully we can get him in a situation where he's making a few doses. It breaks my heart because I have to call people, not just because of the amount of sales that we have. I don't sell bad semen. I don't want to sell bad semen. I'm not about making money. I'm about making better hogs for my customers, getting them banners in their hands, and getting them in a situation where their program is going to improve. The money is a second thought in my mind. Money will come if I help you guys out. I can make my program work, and I can develop my program with your guys' help. And this is kind of the boar that I want to end on, because I think he's a boar that a lot of people need to utilize. Like I said, again, in the Berkshire program, but he's also one that needs to be used in some crossbred females too as well. So that's Like Me Now. And I think the last one we're going to show you here, and this is kind of a fun kind of deal here, and the little girl that's driving her, this is Samantha Durst. This is the $8,000 gilt purchase from Ohio State Fair. She was the champion gilt there. She is litter mates to Real Desire. I saw this gilt down there at the Berkshire show, and I was like, that's a kind of gilt I could build a Berkshire female program off of. I put in 3 other Berkshire females, but this is going to probably be one of the foundation Berkshire females that I'm going to utilize. This is a Berkshire female that's actually going to get bred to Like Me Now after everybody gets their semen, if his semen's good. That's the kind of deal that we're looking here. This little girl works really hard in showing them. If you guys get a chance to OPIG jackpot circuit, if you're from here in Ohio, participate in it. It's a great program. And I know I haven't talked about it yet here a little bit. We're doing an LVS customer show series and show series kind of deal, sale and show series. We're doing one in the Southwest, or one in the Northwest and one in the Southeast. We're doing a sale down in Georgia. It was October 28th, where we're going to have, it's a 1-for-1 deal. You have to have 1 pig sired by a lean value sire's hog to a non-lean value sired hog. And then after you get that hog, after that hog sale's done and over with, we're going to come back with a jackpot show. In that jackpot show, the gilt has the champion at the jackpot show has the opportunity to win $2,000. How that works out is you're guaranteed $1,000 if you're champion at the jackpot show. $500 if you came from the sale, and $500 if you're sired by a lean value sires hog. We're doing one in the southeast, we're doing one in the northwest, and now's the time to tell you we're doing one here in Ohio too. So here's the deal on that, how that's going to work out. We're working with All Glaze County Fair to see if we can line it up with them. With All Glaze County Fair, we're going to line that up with them to try to get it to where we're going to have the sale there in March and then come back probably the end of April or somewhere in that same time frame and do a show. This gilt can drive all day. I've been talking here for a long time. I think that gilt's got a whale of good amount in her. She's one that I think, you know, guys, when I'm breeding Berkshire females, that's the kind of gilt I want to use. Thank you, Samantha. That's good. All right, guys, that kind of wraps up the show. Yep, take her that way. That kind of wraps up the Boar Parade and show. You're more than welcome to stay around. I'm sure I got a little bit of food left. I know I got some beer left. You guys are more than welcome to come and ask me questions. The office is open if you need AI rods and supplies. Let's do one more drawing. We're going to do two. The next drawing, real quick. This is for a dose, 5 doses of PG 600. So we're going to give away 5 doses of PG 600. Lance Barnett. Lance Barnett, you won 5 dose vial PG 600.
It's hard to find that stuff too. There's a manufacturer hold on that.
Yeah, there's a manufacturer hold on that thing, and we're probably one of the only guys that supply that. And lastly, but not least, let's dig down. I'm going to do 2. Why not? Why not? Matt wants his name pulled. We're going to do 2 more drawings for 2 more doses of semen on any boar and stud. First winner, Brent Carity. Brent Carity, you won 2 free doses on any boar and stud here at Lean Value Sires. So make sure, I'll make sure you guys get it. And then last one, I think that's Jason Boyer. Jason Boyer from Annihilator, Ohio. Jason Boyer, you get 2 free doses on any boar and stud. I want to thank you guys for coming. Let's hear a good round of applause for the Boar Parade. I think we had a great show today. I want to thank you guys for coming. We hope to see you guys down the road. Feel free to stick around and ask some questions. We'll be around here for a while. Thank you.